Welcome to today's edition of the CIO WaterCooler TV. As part of a project, an IBM research project, we are exploring the topic of secure. And to help us do that today, I'm joined by Lynda Hart, Head of Consumer and Enterprise Digital EMEA at Volvo. Lynda, first of all, what does secure mean to you? Because to say we're delving into the topic of secure, that feels quite open and broad.
Yeah, that it does, but you're talking to somebody who works for Volvo Cars. So secure to me has to be synonymous with safe. So at our company and what we do, to be secure, we want to protect what's important to you or to the consumer. And a lot of that is making people feel safe, like being safe in our cars, feeling safe when using our applications, being safe that any data you share is not shared with other parties. So for us, right, secure is safe, whether it's driving a car or being a part of the car or using our technology. And so for us, being safe is very much being secure.
I suppose being at an automotive company, possibly your own idea of what secure has slightly changed over time.
Yeah, actually it is. And also just being part of the revolution with, data protection and all that's coming there. And as cars get way more technology focused, right? It's not just about, pistons and spark plugs and engines. It's really about the tech in the car, sharing with the car. I mean, even people stealing your car, right? Using technology to do that without actually having to, break into it. So absolutely moving into the automotive industry, it really changed the perception of what's very secure or what we need to secure.
Let's ask another question then that we can probably break down into two particular areas. But what's the biggest challenge in keeping, first of all, your organization secure and then customers secure? And I suppose you touched on some of those topics just a few seconds ago.
Yeah, I think the two things, and it's people, and I know that's probably a cliche, but one for us, the key to secure is actually securing that we've got the right people in the right places and we've got really good people who keep an eye on these things, right? So they come into this organization and look at protecting or securing our organization from a data perspective, from a technology perspective, from a corporate perspective. So really, it's about the people we have is the first thing that's really most important for us, is making sure that they put Volvo and its customers at the heart of what they do. And then the second piece, which I think is often the biggest challenge, is actually, the way into the organization is often through people, right? So trying to educate our staff and also our retailer network about, how to stay secure with technology, from everything from phishing to mobile phone scams to clicking on things to using corporate assets. I think the other key thing, the biggest challenge, is making sure that people know they have a role to play in your organization. You can't just rely on the guys at corporate or the CISO to put in everything in place to keep our organization secure. You actually play a part. Everybody plays a part in that. And that's where I think the two challenges are: having the right people who oversee this and put great programs in place, and then actually getting people trained up and aware of what their roles to play in security, safety.
Now, it stands to reason that unfortunately there are a lot of people who do try and attack organizations and attack individuals. You mentioned phishing attacks there. You also mentioned that it's a case of people and keeping people up to date. And we're talking about a lot of people here. So how do you keep up to date, given that this environment is changing all the time?
So I'm really, fantastic people in some of my team within our European region. So we've got a dedicated person whose job is to keep connected with the global market in terms of the global headquarters, about what kind of is happening, what's coming down, but really then applying that to boots on the ground, people in EMEA. And we do a lot of gamification of competitions about who's taking the most cyber training among the market. So where we do, phishing attempts and who's been succeeding and who needs training. So we really try to gamify their involvement within the keeping the secure. But I really rely on my staff and the guys at the headquarters to pull together what the latest trends are and the most technology. Because again, we can do everything we want at the high levels to secure, the firewalls and the outside and that piece. But when it comes down to local environments that have been built over the years, who haven't kept on, the pace with vulnerabilities or changes or new ways of working, then I look to the people in my team to work with them individually to have an idea of what they can do, right? If you've got a company, but you have markets who've grown organically, who may need a boost to maturity, where other markets are very new and start with the latest and greatest. So we really try to take an individual and personal approach to each market to see what they might need.
You talked there about local regions. How does your organization adapt its security within the EMEA regions? And I suppose that firstly depends on the pervasiveness of technology in those regions, but also I suppose the way that cars and vehicles are used by people in those regions.
Yeah, that's true. I think the good news is, I think starting with the car piece, as a global organization, the car gets produced in one of 2 or 3 or 4 places in the world. So the car is the car is the car, because you as a consumer want to be able to drive your car from the UK to France or to Germany and Austria and still have it serviced in case there's any issue. So we do have some certain global platforms that allow the technology to be global, not necessarily local. You might have different standards in different markets, like right-hand drive, left-hand drive, right? Or different emission standards, depending on the market. So there's a few things that need to be localized, but in general, we want to make sure that your car experience is consistent across the EMEA region. So with that said, the car is kind of, I guess we have not a minimum viable project, we've got the maximum viable, like we've got the best that we can have globally out there. But adapting it to the local markets really does mean a bit of a personal touch, but within, a certain range of topics. So we want to make sure that the risk management, we have certain standards which we're going to ask each market to follow, and the teams there make sure that they're doing that. But again, taking a look at what kind of staff they have, the vulnerability, and really trying to do some awareness and training. Because as I kind of said, younger markets kind of start with a technology first, a digital first approach. They've got a lot more staff who are used to working, much more mobile, much more around, versus older markets, which just might have staff who are used to doing it one way and leaving paper around or doing things on older software. So educating them on where they need to be and helping them get there. And then again, gamification. We really love trying to bring some competition in among the markets, or just making it fun rather than everyone thinking that cybersecurity or training or awareness is a chore.
And look, just as a very last question, you came from a very different industry. What have you brought from previous experiences, perhaps to this role, that was new, that perhaps evolved that kind of idea of secure? And you've mentioned about how you've got gamification in teams and so on, but what were you able to bring from different experience that's really enhanced the role?
I think it's really more of a tailored approach, because to secure and protect and cybersecurity, you could be at bank level, right? And you have these expectations where you want to make sure no one's breaking into financial, or if you're all a digital ecosystem, you have certain standards. But then before I was in, physical assets or construction, or I was in fast moving consumer goods, and you really needed a different approach. So for me to bring in, I think the experience was, we have a car company, we have a third party that you contract it from, right? You're not normally buying it from the manufacturer, you buy it from a retailer, or sometimes you buy it secondhand through a used car market. So I think my part to it is actually saying, what kind of industry are we in, what kind of product are we in, and what are the key areas for security? Because you could be, how long is a piece of string, right? You could spend lots of money and many man hours to get yourself to the highest rating that you can, but actually for your product or your market or your supply chain, you might really focus your efforts in a different area. And I think my variety of backgrounds led me to get more pragmatic when it comes to deploying people and assets in kind of the best way.
Lynda, thank you for taking the time to join us today and trying to unbox this topic of secure.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the CIO WaterCooler TV. Please do stay, have a look around the website. There is plenty more content.